Hi, I'm Ashley, and here's Mia. In this video, we'll learn about compound complex sentences. Let's go! First, let's review some things you already know about sentences. So you know that a sentence is a group of words that expresses a complete thought. A clause is a group of words that contains both a subject and a predicate. And an independent clause can stand alone as a complete sentence. Both of these sentences are called simple sentences because they contain only one independent clause. We set up a tent, we camped in the yard. If we join them together with a comma and coordinating conjunction, we set up a tent and we camped in the yard, we have a compound sentence. Remember, a compound sentence contains two independent clauses, so there are two subjects, two predicates, and they're joined together with the comma and coordinating conjunction. All right, a couple more things to review real quick. You've learned that a subordinating conjunction joins a dependent clause to an independent clause, and a dependent clause is a clause that cannot stand alone as a sentence. It has a subject and verb, but it begins with a subordinating conjunction, and that's why it's often called a subordinate clause. So you've learned that a complex sentence contains one independent clause and at least one dependent clause, like in the sentence, "When the sun is shining, Josh likes to play outside." It has one independent clause and one dependent clause beginning with the subordinating conjunction when. Okay, so let's take an inventory of what we know. There's the simple sentence with just one independent clause. There's the compound sentence with two independent clauses. And then there's the complex sentence with one independent and at least one dependent clause. All right, you ready to learn one more? It's called a compound complex sentence. Like the name suggests, it's a combination of two sentence types. Let's start with just one independent clause, like, "My family walked along the beach." We can add another independent clause, like, "We got sand all over our feet," by joining it with a coordinating conjunction. All right, that makes a compound sentence. But then we can add a dependent clause like "after we ate dinner" to the beginning of our sentence. Wow, there are three clauses in this sentence. Okay, read it with me. "After we ate dinner, my family walked along the beach and we got sand all over our feet." This is an example of a compound complex sentence. It has two independent clauses joined with a comma and coordinating conjunction, and it also has a dependent clause added to it. So now we know that a compound complex sentence contains two independent clauses joined by a comma and coordinating conjunction. That's the part that makes it compound. And it also has at least one dependent clause. That's the part that makes it complex. Here's another example. We can start with the complex sentence. "Since my sister loves art, we gave her a paint set for her birthday." Then we make it compound by adding, "and she has made some beautiful creations." Now we have two independent clauses joined by a comma and coordinating conjunction, and we have a dependent clause. So it's a compound complex sentence. We'll practice another way. Let's start by thinking of a dependent clause. It'll need a subject and a verb like, "I played And then it will need to begin with a subordinating conjunction like before. Now let's think of two independent clauses. Two things I might have done before I played. Maybe I finished my work and I did my chores. If we put the dependent clause with just one independent clause, like before I played, I finished my work, we would have a complex sentence. But if we join the two independent clauses with the dependent clause, before I played, I finished my work and I did my chores, we have a compound complex sentence. Okay, let's do it again. This time our dependent clause can be because I like cake. Now let's think of two independent clauses. Two things I might have done because I like cake. Maybe I learned to bake and I began collecting cake recipes. If we put all three clauses together, we form a compound complex sentence. Because I like cake, I learned to bake and I began collecting cake recipes. It has two independent clauses and one dependent clause. Let's see if we can spot the compound complex sentence. Is it number 1, I wear my coat and I bundle up? Number 2, when the weather is cold, I wear my coat? Or number 3, when the weather is cold, I wear my coat and I bundle up? If you said number 3, you are correct. It has two independent clauses, one dependent clause. Number 1 is a compound sentence because it has two independent clauses, and number 2 is a complex sentence because it has one dependent and one independent clause. Let's review. In this lesson, we learned that a compound complex sentence contains at least one dependent clause and two independent clauses joined by a coordinating conjunction. For example, when Mia starts her day, she smiles and she remembers to always be clever.
Hey!